Welcome to TwebTech TV. I'm your host, Brandon Nolet. Let's talk about DRM. So a few weeks ago, Image decided that they would sell all their comics without DRM. What's the deal? Well, they say, according to an interview with Wired, that piracy doesn't sync properties. It's more an indicator to success. And that not only will they have their content still available without DRM, you can still buy them from Comixology, iBooks, and wherever Image sells their comic. Is this just for publicity, or is this for good? Now, on to the next topic. Now, there are different modes of media that is protected by DRM. There's video games, there's ebooks, there's music, there's any type of media that you've consumed probably has had some form of DRM. Now, with video games, there are three types of DRM. There's persistent online, there's software tampering, and there's one-time activation. Now, persistent online is just like what the Xbox One would have had, where after a predetermined set of time, the device would have to connect to an external server just to make sure that you're still running a legal copy of the game. Now, with software tampering, let's say somebody cracks the game. There was one game that I saw that it would say that your company has been hit by piracy and your sales are going down. But this wouldn't happen in the uncracked version. And with one-time activation, it's just, this is probably the most common. You enter a code and your game is activated, which is probably the easiest one to circumvent. With ebooks, it's very common that you'll have a platform lock, meaning that you will only be able to read said ebook on a certain platform or with a certain app. So with iBooks, they use the Fair Play DRM, which only enables you to read any books purchased from iBooks store on the iBooks app, whether it be on the desktop, on your iPad, on your iPhone, or iPod. You have to be running iBooks to be able to read this ebook. And another way to DRM or lock down an ebook would be to region lock it, where you're only allowed to read it in this country or this country, like let's say Canada, Sweden, and France. You're only allowed to read it in those three countries. If you're located outside of these countries, whether they locate you by GPS or your Wi-Fi signal, you will not be allowed to read these ebooks. Now with film, region locking. Again, you'll only be able to play these movies or video clips in certain countries. This would happen very often with movies that were made by that just came generally from Hollywood. You wouldn't be allowed to play these movies in Australia or in China. And with DVDs, you'd most commonly have copy protection or copy encryption, which would deter users from copying the actual disc and would put a sort of lock on the disc so that you couldn't make illegal copies of said disc and either resell them or lend them to a friend permanently. Music. Again, region locking. Region locking seems to be the most cross-media DRM. So, like, with the other ones, only allowed to play in certain countries or certain regions. And platform locking. I know that Apple, pre-2009, only allowed you to play their music using iTunes or the iPod or the iPad or the iPhone. Now, what does this do to the whole consumer group? Well, with the region locking, if you're located outside of whatever region is specified, then you're just simply SOL. Unless you can provide some sort of proxy or some other way to circumvent, and it's very uncommon to be able to circumvent film region locking. So you'd be SOL. Now with software, that's another type of media that is DRM'd. With software, if you're moving from one computer or one device to the next, you have to buy another code considering that your product has already been activated. So if you want to buy a game, you'd be better to buy it online so that you can re-download the game from the same source instead of having to go out and buying another code. Now with the persistent online connection for video game verification, this means that video games automatically have an expiry date. It's dynamic. Let's say EA decides that, they're going to have their next Sims game, like SimCity 4, a persistent online verification. If those servers go down, you can't play the game anymore because the game cannot connect online to that server to verify that it is in fact a legal copy. When lending media, it becomes extremely complicated. Like with movies, if you can play a movie on your computer, but you want to lend the same film to someone, or like a pen pal or a cousin who lives somewhere else, and there's region lock on that film, they can't play it because of this region lock. And most commonly, you don't know there is a region lock on said disc or file or what have you. So what are some general views on piracy versus DRM? Well, I know that a lot of people think that pirates, they just simply do it for money because they don't want to pay. Sometimes the pricing is just extremely unfair. Like video games, video games come out at $60, and I think that's extremely unfair because within 3 months you're going to have the game on sale, maybe not even on sale, for $40, $30. So you know that these companies are making a pretty penny off of you just because you want to have the latest video game. Sometimes you just cannot purchase a certain media content in countries like Australia or China or Japan or South Korea. Some of these places actually don't have outlets, or they're just prohibited by copyright not to be able to purchase or play these things. Now, back when I was, 8 years old, 10 years old, I wanted to buy music, but there wasn't something like the iTunes store or the Amazon store. You couldn't buy MP3s very easily. You had to jump through a bunch of hoops just to be able to get an MP3, a single MP3. So most commonly, people would just go through LimeWire or Torrent Freak or any other mode of P2P music sharing. Now, some people, just because they might not trust the internet for whatever reason, like pirating because of the anonymity. Now, you're not entirely anonymous, but it prevents you from having to put your personal information into the cloud aside from your IP address, which is dynamic most of the time. Now, on the other side, copyright holders just want to squeeze the money out of you. Now, there is some truth to this, but it's not entirely true. Copyright owners still have to pay their employees. Their employees still have a life that they gotta pay for themselves. They need to be able to properly pay these employees. Maybe the employees are overpaid, or they're just not getting all the money that's being made off of these video games and movies and what have you. But it happens. They might overcharge because they're greedy. But it's the world that we have to live with. And piracy seems to be taking them down a notch. Here's Image. This is the proof. Now, in the grand scheme of things, DRM costs both sides unnecessary money. You have the companies that are paying money just to implement this DRM and find out new ways to keep people from copying or stealing their software or videos or anything. And then you have the people who are buying these things and being overcharged for their content. Or DRM is preventing them from using this content on another platform, so they have to repurchase it. It's costing both sides unnecessary money. While DRM can protect potential profit, the majority of users do not pirate. I can ask 20 people that I know what a torrent is, and they won't have any idea whatsoever. Now, torrenting is not the only way to pirate, but it is the most common way. Alright, well, I hope you like the content that I'm putting out. Leave a comment down below saying what you like about it and what you want to see.